Well, I was taught early on in my career confidentiality, especially in the hedge fund sector. It's death by firing squad, basically. You weren't allowed to say anything about anything. You had to have all the proper controls in place. So listen, some of these generic tools are much bigger companies than OpsCheck. So I'm sure, as far as the cloud hosting providers probably have, strong security as well. We happen to use Microsoft Azure. All our data is encrypted, both in transit and in resting state. In fact, what we also do is, since it's sort of a workflow task tool type of application, typically they're not going to be very highly sensitive, bits of information in the name of a task, or you're probably not putting your positions, your investments, your balances, your client names. I mean, they could appear in the task, but not typically, but not too highly confidential. The point is, when you complete these jobs, often you have the ability to attach, when you create these jobs, policies and procedures. And when you complete them as additional evidence, you may have positions and balances and client names. So on the documentation side, we add another level of security, whereas you're forced to put in a secondary password. The clients need to create a secondary password, not even shared with people at OpsCheck. It's just for their privacy. And that password acts as the key to unencrypt those documents. So you upload them to OpsCheck, they're attached to a job or a completed task, and whenever you want to read them, i.e. download them, you need that second password that acts as the key to unencrypt the document. As far as differentiating between Asana or Monday, we did about 2 to 3 years ago, I had my development team do a competitor analysis where they looked up the other generic tools that are out there, and we beat them all. But let me qualify this on how we beat them or why we beat them. I kind of set the standard, so you may say maybe the results were a little skewed, so I will admit that from the beginning. But I made a list of things that I believed, and I validated this with other colleagues. What's more important to the financial sector? And then when we compared feature to feature, and then we did, well, what are the top 12 or so features that are more important to the financial sector? And we went out. So for instance, we have very great capabilities of granting and limiting access to certain people in the application by department. Or even if you're letting an outside stakeholder in, maybe it's a service provider, an investor, a regulator, a law firm. There's ways to grant and limit access and share transparency that's very strong. The other thing we do really well is we understand how these jobs are done and when they're due. So a lot of jobs are due a certain amount of business days or calendar days, plus or minus, at the end of a month end or end of a quarter end. We can do that in a very simple way. Jay mentioned the KPIs and the metrics. We can easily track individual performance, team performance, department performance. And then the search filtering is we do that really well. Show me how we're doing on a particular client or a fund or an entity. Put a date or date range in there. Is there anything outstanding or late or requires an approval? The filtering system, I think, is unmatched. So that's just to name a few, but we have a lot of ways that I think we distinguish ourselves from those tools because we're focusing on a particular industry.